Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I know it's been a minute since I've been on here, and thank you to anyone that sent me DMs or messages asking if everything was all right. Yes, I'm still alive. These videos take a lot more time than you would think, and then you combine that with a busy shoot schedule. It becomes a lot to handle as a solo operator like myself. Plus, I had several commercial shoots that came up in a row where I was not able to film behind the scenes or really show any of the results. And so that kind of led me into taking a little bit of a break on here. But I'm back with this video. I had an exciting shoot a couple weeks ago up in Philadelphia with the hockey team up there, the Philadelphia Flyers. The second time that I've worked with them in a row, and wanted to just share some insights, things I did differently this time, talk about the lighting setup, talk about maybe, I think I've got like 3-4 tips listed on here that maybe you can apply to an upcoming photo shoot that you might have to kind of expand, I guess, the offerings that you can give your clients, maybe give you a few different techniques, or maybe it's just some things that you don't always think about when you're on a photo shoot that can just kind of help you be creative in the moment. So let's jump all into it. We'll start just with, I guess, some house cleaning type stuff where I'll talk about the gear. First of all, it'll be, since we're all camera aficionados here, I wanted to mention that I switched up. I used the Sony A1 Mark II on this shoot. Last year I had the Canon R5 Mark II, and it was probably the first really big shoot that I had with that camera. I had several issues that I've talked about in previous videos on here with the autofocus system. It was just a frustrating outing with that camera, and I felt like I was really kind of handicapped, and just kind of stuck with me. And so I had the opportunity to try out the Sony a couple of shoots back. It worked amazingly for me. I also needed access to the E-mount, since Sony does have their mount open for third-party lenses like the Tamron here, but I used a anamorphic lens for a recent shoot, which I'll discuss in an upcoming video as well, and that was just not an option with the Canon. So it was just another reason for me to kind of look around a little bit, and I could not be happier with this setup that I'm going to talk about today, which is the A1 II, as I mentioned. And I use the Tamron 35 to 150 lens, and this is a f2 to f2.8 variable if you're on the wide open end of things. But what this did is it gave me a lot of reach from just my shooting, I guess, position in this shoot. And we're on the ice, and we're on mats, and if you've ever photographed on the ice, you know, every time you leave like the mat, even the mat can be a little bit slippery, but anytime you leave that area and get onto the ice, you know, there's a chance that you could wipe out. And so it was really nice having this extra range on the camera. And I'll talk about some other things too, where I was able to kind of position myself in different ways as we move through some of these tips to get different compositions within the camera. But this lens, this combination, it was fast enough to kind of hang with me when I was zooming in some of the action sequences that we did. I had tried out the G 24 to 105 f4 lens because I love that on the Canon side, but I found in a previous photo shoot, which I might talk about during that when I make that video, but I found that lens to be a little too slow when I had to zoom to maintain sharp focus. This lens here might be a little slower on the initial, I guess, autofocus or focusing initially, but once it finds focus, it is just a nice lens to work with, and the range is hard to beat when you can go all the way from 35 on the wide end. I can get full body portraits, in this case, of players on the ice, and then I can go all the way to 150 and get really tight, nice portraits of the guys. And we'll talk about some of the lighting tricks that I used here to make those even extra dynamic and dramatic as we go through what we're going to talk about here today. So let's jump on. I've got my computer here. I'm going to walk you through the lighting setup, and then I'm going to talk about kind of what I did during the shoot to mix things up and do my best to impress my clients and the players who are watching what we're doing, and you'll kind of see right here what I'm talking about at this point. So let me hit record and we'll jump onto the screen. Once again, we were inside the Wells Fargo arena. It's pretty cool whenever you can have a photo shoot right in the middle of an arena like this. And my section was the action photography area. On either side of me, they had video stations. So this was a legit media day where they had video stations going, they had other photography stations. They were basically creating all the media that they will be using throughout the season on, well, I'm sure they create some afterwards, but this is all the preseason type media content that they capture here for social and in-game, all that kind of type of stuff. So it was just really neat to be a part of that, but you can kind of see the overall layout that I had here. So on either side, I went with the symmetrical lighting setup. I think it's basically the same as I did last year with the 1x4 strip boxes. These are the FJ400 Mark IIs this year. So I had a strip box and a reflector on either side. And so then that gives me that symmetry. So then I can actually have the players go all the way back to the backdrop, which you'll see in some of the behind the scenes video that I captured. And then I could get them properly exposed all the way, toward almost to my key light, which I have right here, and it's on one of my larger booms. And I've got the 1x3 Pro Light mod on the 1x3 Rapid box here. That is, once again, to control the reflections on the visor, the clear visors that the guys wear when they're playing hockey. I've talked about that a lot in the past. That I came up with this idea right about the time I was creating the Pro Light mods, and what this does, and I'll show some examples here. It just puts a kind of a string of lights on that visor, which looks just like a lot of arena lights, and so it's a lot less distracting than if you had one large light. And I know a lot of photographers that work in hockey like this, if they're not using something like this, they've got to take a light way up above, and you'll see shadowing on the faces. It's really hard to work with those masks, and have a solution that makes it easier to create stuff using strobes like this. So you can see my setup over here as well. It's kind of a bit of a mess at this point in the day. We were getting toward the tail end, but you can see here's my camera position right here, and I'll show some behind the scenes stuff, obviously, showing kind of how I was operating from that area. And then I'll show you the tethering setup. This is something that I'm going to talk about probably in my next video that Tether Tools sent to me. They've got a new table out and a whole, I think they call it their ultimate tethering system. And so I'm going to do a whole video on this. They've really stepped up their game. This was absolutely perfect for a client like this. It gave me the option to have a monitor here that my clients can look at while I'm shooting, and then I also have my computer where I can look at. So this day and age, I don't want to get too deep in this because I'm going to do a whole video on it later. But then when you're shooting into a laptop and everyone starts huddling around it, it's hard for me to see it. I mean, obviously I can get some review in camera, but it's a lot easier to just glance over there periodically and make sure everything's looking all right. But this kind of keeps us separate. Also, the players can look at it if they so choose and that type of thing. But just really a neat setup. And I know leading into this photo shoot, they were trying to figure out how to get a monitor onto the ice. When I can show up with everything like this, it really impresses certain clients just like this. And so I'm solving a problem for them, and the more problems you can solve for these clients, the better. So that is pretty much the lighting setup. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about, and I might have alluded to this if I titled this video the way I think I'm going to title it, is the transmitter for the strobes. And I've got the Westcott model here. Depending on whatever brand you use, they all have transmitters that work pretty much the same. And I just want to just talk about how powerful of a tool this can be. Sometimes I think we take it for granted this day and age, but with this on top of my camera, I can control the power levels, obviously, with all the different strobes. And more importantly, what I've been doing lately is turning strobes on and off. Whether or not it is when I'm building a lighting setup to kind of see what I'm doing, or showing people during a workshop like I did recently, or if I'm on set like I was here, when I can do something like turn off the key light and create something more dramatic than with all my lights on. So I could turn, in this case, I could turn the key light off and drop some shadow into my players, have them positioned in a certain way, and create some more dramatic type portraits. And that is going to lead me kind of right into the first tip that I wanted to share with y'all, kind of on my list of tips that I have over here off to the side. And that is to learn from previous photo shoots. I mean, take the experiences that you have. Maybe if it's something, you know, really that kind of sticks out, make notes about, you know, something that might have happened. Or if you're going back and reviewing images, which was the case from last year's shoot, where I found that during some of the action sequences, the key light at the time didn't fire on every frame. And when the players were positioned in a certain way, it produced some really dramatic images that were probably some of my favorites from last year. And so I compiled those together, and when I met with the team reps, the creative guys from the Flyers, I showed them those images and just asked them if they would be interested in maybe creating some of those on purpose this time around. And they were ready for it. And it was kind of a mistake the first time around, but then this time I prepared for it. I made notes of how the body position would work and in that type of lighting setup. So then we would kind of get everything we needed to get with the uniform fully lit. And then we would go into the dramatic phase of the shoot, and I would have the players angle in a certain direction and turn the key light off, and we got some really cool images that I'm hopefully showing here during this video. Now, the second tip I know I've talked about in the past too, and it kind of goes along with what we're talking about here and positioning our player, but also you need to think about positioning yourself as the photographer. I mean, you're in full control of the angle of view here, and that means you are at the height, you know, you control the height of the camera. You can stand for some of these images. You can sit for some of the images. You can get, you know, like on your knees, like I did a lot during this photo shoot. And then sometimes I would pop the screen out of the back and get my camera all the way down, in this case on ice level, and get different perspectives. And then not only that, I was also in camera, like especially when we go to more of that dramatic setup, I was moving around and positioning some of like the reflector lights in the background to where I would capture those in frame or just out of frame, where I could get some neat flaring within the lens. I noticed that when I did some shots, we had a pre-light day the day before the shoot, and just kind of testing out the lens and seeing what was going on and everything else. And I noticed that I was getting some cool looks when I included those reflectors. So I would kind of take that dramatic look almost to another level just by positioning myself and the camera, angling the camera toward those lights and including them in the frame sometimes, or, you know, just out of sight like I was saying. But I wouldn't have known to do that without, you know, paying attention and being observant about what was going on in the camera. And then when we would have the players come through, I would try maybe a couple different things, and then I would ask the guys there that are watching everything that I'm photographing, like, you know, did that look good? Is that something you would you know possibly want more images of, or something in that style, and get their immediate feedback in between the players. And the process, like on a shoot like this, we have the players show up, and I believe we had 5 minutes with each guy, and so each player would come in and they would have someone there kind of watching the clock, and so we had to move quick, and that way I could bounce things off of them, and I wasn't wasting time creating stuff that was really not, you know, kind of hitting the mark with those guys. All right, the next tip I want to just share is to get your subject to look off camera. And as you watch some of this behind the scenes, you'll see that I wanted to do a lot of that. And, you know, the first thing that anyone does when they get in front of your camera is really look at you, or they look at the lens, and they will just stay there unless you coach them to do different things, and not just, you know, move their bodies and that type of thing, but, you know, direct where they're looking. So then you can get some images that look almost like a cross between kind of something maybe candid, more so than just being totally set up. And that's really, I think, what can separate some work from others, is where you kind of take it away from that snapshot type feel to something a little more directed. And then when you combine it with some of that dramatic lighting where you have the players looking off, you get more of those kind of heroic style poses, and the lighting all comes together, and you just get some images that are much more put together and polished than you would if you just stood someone in front of your camera and just started taking snapshots. So there's a lot involved in taking your photography to the next level, and I'm hoping that these tips I'm just throwing out here toward the end of this video will help y'all maybe just consider those things when you get set up to have your next photo shoot, just consider these different options. So on a shoot like this, it can get pretty repetitive when player after player is coming. You got a short amount of time, and I just feel like to keep things interesting, keep it fun, I like to kind of challenge myself, but at the same time, you know, I get feedback from who I'm working with. We kind of get this thing going, and they kind of have their ideas and I have my ideas, and then it becomes more of a day of creative photography where I feel like it's just so much more enjoyable for everybody that's involved. So I just want to throw those out. I'm glad to be back here on the channel. If y'all feel like this is worthy, please hit that thumbs up. You want to see more content just like this in the future, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, I've got a lot of stuff kind of piled up that I'm hoping to get out in the next couple weeks. Hit that little bell too, a notification bell. I've been gone now for a couple months, so YouTube might not be pushing my videos like they might have done in the past, so who knows. I don't know how all this stuff works, but at least that way you'll be notified when I do put up new content. And if y'all have any questions, comments, please drop those down in the comments below. Anything else y'all want to see in the future, you know, hit that down below as well. I will link my tutorial down there. On that tutorial site, it's a list of all the gear that I'm using on these photo shoots that I've been using, I guess, over the last couple months. So all that information is there over at quantsphoto.tools.com. So check that out if you're interested. And you can always find me on social media at quantsphoto on Instagram and at ProLightMods. So in the meantime, y'all stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see y'all again soon in the next one.